Hello everyone, thank you for coming. My name is Professor Sturman. I'm the director of the Center for Hospitality Research. And some of the stuff that we try to do in general is to help, well, people do research. And for you, that mostly is potentially doing independent studies or senior theses. Part of what we do is we have a number of partners with the CHR, and sometimes they able to provide ideas, support, and in this case particularly data. Smith Travel Research has been a long supporter of the school. They've been a partner of the center since our founding, I believe. And they provide the school, they provide many professors, and for many students they provide a lot of data, and particularly data about hotel and hotel performance. And so I wanted to take a chance today to introduce Steve Hood, who is what's your role officially? Senior VP of Research for STR. But he's just Steve. He's just with the school so often and comes here so often to talk about the data. And I want you thinking about if you want to do a senior thesis or want to do an independent study and you want to be able to use this kind of data, I'm the one to talk to and eventually coordinate with Steve, and we can get you, as he will describe, a lot of potential stuff. And with no further ado, Steve.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Mike. And it's always an honor and privilege to be here. I'm going to go move pretty quick and try to save some room for questions. If we don't get all the questions done today, I'm just an email away, so don't hesitate or ask Mike, and he can help direct you there too. So we're going to do a real fast intro to Perfect Everything. I'm guessing everybody familiar with STR? Okay. Anybody not? Smith Travel Research. Okay. You know a little bit about what we do. Although a lot of people talk about us as a leader in hotel research, benchmarking is our niche. We get data from a lot of hotels. Star reports are probably what we're most well known for, over 50,000 hotels and 85 all over the world, conferences and stuff like that. Everybody see this one before? How many have seen? How many have covered this in Renita's? In Dr. McCarthy's class, okay? Benchmarking, two managers, manager A, manager B. Who you're going to give the bonus to? A. We don't know yet, do we? Because we haven't hit the button. Come on in.
Sorry.
It's not too late. We haven't hit the button, and that shows how they do versus their competitors. And it's a totally different story. We were about to give the bonus to manager A because she or he was doing 7% better than last year, but now they see they actually underperformed their competitors. Manager B, who wasn't looking really good, actually now we see actually outperformed her competitors. And this teaches a very important principle in the hotel industry called the suck less principle. If you're sucking, you want to suck less than your competitors. Okay? In the downturn, everybody was sucking, right? But they needed to know, were they sucking more or less than their competitors? And that's how you get bonused in the hotel industry. But here you see it reaccelerating. Of course, that's exciting to the industry right now because demand percent change is reaccelerating. Everybody's pumped. You go to conferences and you hear quotes like "best fundamentals of our lifetime." Okay, that's what people are saying about the hotel industry right now. So you guys are graduating at the perfect time, and jobs show that. Eastern European data. Talk about a cool project. Let's look at what's going on in Eastern Europe, especially related to political, situation in Russia, and all kinds of cool things that you could do there. People aren't going. Young professionals in Russia travel outside of Russia quite a bit, but not anymore. Since political unrest, they're not going to spend the weekend in Estonia. They're not going to spend the weekend in some of these other places. So all kinds of cool things you could do. Actual occupancy, just another example of presentations. Actual ADR, so we track all kinds of different things. Weekday weekend analysis is another example. Now for that, this is just a single market. But we're tracking the data separately. You can track it by weekday, weekend, or daily data as well. And you can analyze what's going on in the market as far as something like that is concerned. You look at a market like Nashville and you see Nashville has about a $10 premium on weekend occupancy over weekday occupancy. But what do you see in the last 2 years? You see a much larger growth in weekday occupancy for the last 2 years that was related to a brand new convention center that opened in 2013. Look at the impact of the convention center on business in Nashville. Impact analyses are cool kind of projects to do and very critical stuff. You do a really good one, you send it to me, we'll get it published in Hotel News Now, and Maury, Kim, interned with us a summer ago. We don't do many internships, I apologize, but the end result of her internship was publishing an article. So this is cool stuff. You look at something, you look at an event and you analyze the impact of an event. Group and transient mix, a little more complicated, but major change between 2005 and 2015. When you talk about the percentage of business of group versus transient, look what happened in this market. In this market, it almost went total opposite. If you go back to January of 2014, these percentages changed dramatically. So what do you see in there? In our current downturn, and even during the recovery, the group versus transient mix has been changed dramatically. And not enough people are out there analyzing that kind of thing. Even the companies, are still trying to figure out that. And so that's cool kind of stuff to be looking at. Pipeline data, we track as well. The pipeline data, of course, that's going to be development information. So all kinds of cool things you can look at development. Think about what I did a project with kids with students from Hong Kong Poly, where they were looking at the top markets in China and top brands in China for the last 5 years compared to the next 5 years. That's easy kind of stuff to do. What were the hot cities? What are going to be the hot cities in the next couple of years? You could talk about that anywhere in the world, and all kinds of cool stuff you could do here. This shows this is a pie chart showing all the hotels currently under construction by continent. No surprise, almost half of them are in Asia Pacific right now. And then you see the other percentages. But tracking that over time is interesting as well. Here they are by chain scale. Another way you can do that. Big growth in select service upscale chains like Courtyards and Hilton Garden Inns. Very easy to build and very, they're easy to build, they're quick to build, and they, provide a good return on investment, quick return on investment. Things like countries with rooms in the pipeline. Nobody would be surprised by the top two countries, but then look at some of these other countries and think about how you could analyze, how you could drill down into some of these other countries and see, hey, what's going on in these places of the world, like Saudi Arabia and UAE and places like that, or a bunch of interesting countries here. Philippines is on the chart now. This chart just shows you. This bar graph is just by number of rooms. Another way to look at it is by percent of existing supply. Anybody guess what country comes to the top if you look at the number of rooms currently under construction as a percentage of the rooms, the existing rooms that are in the market already, in the country already? Philippines comes to the top. Okay, top percentage. It's like 11 or 12%. UAE would be up there as well. All kinds of interesting stuff to look at. So I'm just trying to throw out ideas for you guys. Oh yeah, that'd be interesting. Never thought about that. Top cities with rooms in pipeline. Just interesting things you could think about. Top chains with rooms in the pipeline. And this is the total worldwide view. But you can zoom in and look at that in a specific geographic area. So if you want to see top chains, what did I do? I had one for top chains in Africa. Top chains, I forget where. Top chains in Eastern Europe. That's a real cool, what chains are looking at Eastern Europe as a development area. Here's pipeline in Africa. So, be thinking about places like Africa, Latin America, they're going to be the development hotspots of the future. So that's a cool kind of thing that you can begin to analyze and see, hey, where are things being developed and what brands are looking there, and all kinds of cool stuff. So I just show you some of those presentations. Those are the things when we are out talking to the industry, those are the kinds of things we're sharing. And that's what they're passionate about. That's what they want to hear from us. We're there talking about it because that's what they're interested in. So doing a project on something that's relevant, it makes a whole lot of sense. So as Mike was sharing, the Share Center is STR's program through which we support academia. We provide our data to you guys through that program. Lots of schools involved in that program. Nobody can see any of those, but they're up there. Last month we went over the 500 mark, so that was a big deal. Now, included in the Share Center is lots of data. That's the biggest way that we support academia, by making our data available to you guys for projects and things. And our data, we have a bunch of different sources of data, and I'll show you samples of each of those types of data. Performance data is occupancy, ADR, RevPAR. We'll drill down in a minute. PLL data on accounting. Pipeline and supply, that's development data. Hotel census data is the attribute information. Company information, property room counts, forecasts, sales transaction. This is a little more tourism related, maybe not as relevant for you guys, and then ad hoc industry data files. I'll come back and I'll spend time looking at each one of those in just a minute. These are other things we do. We have training programs. If you've been through Renita's class, you saw these Hotel Industry Analytical Foundations, Hotel Math Fundamentals, Property Level Benchmarking, Hotel Industry Performance Reports, and everybody passed their CHIA on, yay. Okay. Other things we have: how to conduct a market study, hospitality and tourism future trends. These are ones that your professors have access to and can pull out of the Dropbox. This is one we did recently on how to conduct a market study, and we used Nashville as a sample. We looked at the components of a market study and analyzed, talked about how to do this and analyze this for a specific Nashville market, looking at these different components, current stat like this. This is a sample, current stats for a market, and market breakdowns like this one by scale and this one by tract, and so on. So that's one that's out there. Everybody's probably familiar with this one. Hotel News Now, totally free. Great way. A couple things that you guys can use to take advantage of this. First of all, really helpful to stay up on current events. What are the hot topics out there? You need to be able to talk the lingo and stuff like that. When you go to the interview, you need to, when they ask this question, well, why do you want to come to work for Shangri-La? And you want to, this gives you an opportunity to say, well, just like your CEO mentioned at the, Hi-Fi conference, he talked about such, or he or she talked about such and such. That's why I want to come to work for you. So you can look way more intelligent than you really are by staying up on current events. Just joking. Anytime you have a project, user-friendly search capability, put it in, find out what other people are talking about. And you can find, you're going to see people in there that you can email. When you see somebody in there, their emails are in there, and say, hey, I'm a student at Cornell, I was interested in, and you can dialogue with them. So, great way to network as well. So that's an easy thing for you to take advantage of. And this is sort of what we're thinking about in terms of student projects, and these are sort of a catalog of different examples of student projects to throw out there and to help you get thinking here. A local market overview, comparable market analysis. I recently spoke at San Diego. San Diego spent thousands of dollars for a consultant to come in and say which markets compete with San Diego. And they basically said LA does, Las Vegas doesn't. Phoenix does, but Chicago doesn't. So, that's what we mean by a comparable market analysis. And other examples, impact analyses are great. All kinds of cool things you can do. Weather-related, sporting event, holiday shift. What's the impact of Valentine's Day being on the weekend? Friday or Saturday, millions of dollars to the hotel industry. Or pick a month, a holiday like Easter that can shift from one month to another, or Ramadan, or the Jewish holidays. What's the impact of that? And what do GMs need to understand about that? All kinds of cool things. Events like, anybody remember Hotel Sandy? Went up the East Coast. Of course it affected the East Coast, but guess what market was most affected by, or besides the East Coast, what market was most affected by Hurricane Sandy? Chicago. Why?
Flight transfers.
Exactly. Everybody coming from West Coast to East Coast got stuck in Chicago. and they sat there for about a week. And so, occupancies went off the chart in Chicago, but guess what didn't go off the chart?
Rates.
Why? Because GMs, didn't realize the impact of that, and the revenue management wasn't accurate enough to be able to say, hey, wait a minute, we got a hurricane coming to East Coast. They should have predicted that and said, hold on, raise the rates now because we're going to be flooded with people, stuck in our hotels, and they could have made a ton of more money than they did. All crisis related. I mean, nobody studies. Think about all the crises. Tunisia is having major challenges now because of some of the terrorism things that are going on. Nobody does a really good job studying those kinds of things, and unfortunately, that's an example where. And correct me if I'm wrong there, Mike. You can't really get a professor to study something like that because that's not something that they can publish, right?
Correct.
But you guys could do cool research on stuff like that. Am I?
Yeah, it would be great independent study done.
And see that, and Hotel News Now would pick that up in a heartbeat because nobody looks at that kind of stuff and nobody analyzes the data and pores over that the way they should. So all kinds of cool new attraction. There was a student who recently did something. There was a bridge being built somewhere in the world, and she studied the impact of that bridge, linking one geographic area to another geographic area where there were a bunch of hotels. What she did was she picked 4 other, similar situations where there was a bridge being built. They were all unique, but from the impact of those historic situations, she estimated the impact in this future situation would be X% to Y%, and it was really well done. So all kinds of cool potential things you can do there. So weekend, seasonality, compression overflow. What do we mean by compression overflow? You have a big event, in a city somewhere. Obviously, the downtown is going to be affected, but then what? Where does it overflow after that? And that's what we mean by overflow. And sellout night analysis, another cool thing. All kinds of interesting possibilities in there. So just to give you some ideas, and these are things you can talk more with Mike, and we'll be glad to help. This is a student market competition, STR market study competition that we'll talk more about next year and try to get you guys involved in next year. And then certification in hotel industry analytics. Does everybody know about that? Everybody familiar with the CHIA? If you haven't had that, like the certification in hotel industry analytics, let me think. If they're a senior, are you a senior?
I'm a graduate student.
What's that?
A graduate student.
Okay, that's why you didn't have it. So we're going to figure out a way for you to get that if you're a graduate student. If you're an undergrad, you would have had it freshman year. Are there any undergrads who didn't have it? Who don't have it? Okay.
Freshman.
A few?
Freshman.
Oh, you're going to get it soon. Just a matter of time. And but that's something that a lot of schools make mandatory, and this describes it a little bit. If you have any questions about that, we can hook you up. Yeah, matter of fact, we can even do that online for some of your graduate students if we can't until we figure out a way to make that happen.
Okay.
Now, let's talk about hotel data available for research, okay? And we're going to go through each of those 10 examples that I mentioned before, and this is where the stuff is available for you guys. The first example is called performance data, and that's pretty simple. That's occupancy, ADR, RevPAR type data. By default, it means monthly data, but in addition to that, you can get daily data. Now, why would you need daily data? Well, you're doing an impact analysis. You want to study the Olympics and which day had the highest occupancy and which had the highest ADR. You can actually do that with daily data. Any kind of sporting event, any kind of weather event, you get the idea. To see, what were the daily impacts. Well, what's going on right now? What significant event? Expo in Milan, okay? So you could study, the effect of the Expo in Milan. That's a unique event. Why? Because it's spread out over a long period of time. Where an Olympics all, blows up in 2 weeks and then you're done. The Expo is spread out over, March to November. So, what's the impact of that over time? Was the first couple weeks significant? How did that Expo change over time? Now, why do people care about that? or who cares about that? Who cares about the results of the Milan Expo right now? Or who should be caring about it? Dubai. Why? Because they're hosting the Expo in 2020, and we're trying to get students together and professors together to do something to study that, and we can help study the hotel portion of it, but that would be a really cool thing to look at as well. So daily data, monthly data, even the group transient data. It's available back to 87 in the U.S., a little later than that in other parts of the world. And for this type of data, there are lots of different ways that you can select the data. Now, I think you learned about the rules. Those of you who've taken the CHIA have learned about the rules. Bottom line is you can go as granular as asking for data on a group of 4 hotels, 4 participating hotels or more, okay? And we'll give you data on any group of 4 hotels. Now, you could make a request like, hey, just give me luxury hotels in Chicago, and we'll do that. Or give me the whole market of New York, no problem. But you can also ask for a participation list and say, hey, who submits this data in Syracuse, and then pick a small group of hotels in Syracuse. It has to be 4 or more, and they have to be percentage checked. It has to pass all the percentage checks, which we can talk more about if we need to. Yeah?
And just a quick question in terms of segmenting. Can you segment my all-inclusive hotels versus UP standard hotels?
Absolutely. Or give me the boutique hotels in San Francisco, or any way you can dream up, we can do it for you. And ultimately, the most detailed way to do it is to give you a participation list and then let you pick the ones you want.
Hotels.
So, hey, give me, boutique hotels with restaurants on the ground floor and swimming pools on the top floor. It's like, hey, you choose. Anything you can dream up, we can give for you. So when we give you this data, it's going to be an average of the group of hotels, 4 or more. Make sense? Everybody see what you're getting there? Monthly, daily. It's in Excel. Excel. You get easy to graph. Oops. Here it is. Easy to graph and easy to work with. So you're getting, let's go to 12 months data, you're getting occupancy, the actual data and the percent change, ADR, RevPAR, supply, demand, and revenue. And this is great data. You can graph the actuals, you can graph the percent changes, see the interaction of all the data, and really help, really get comfortable. Comfort level with data is really going to go help you as far as the future is concerned. Yeah.
I just have a question about your competitive sets in general. Do you take into consideration Airbnb?
We don't track data for Airbnb, no. So this is going to be pure hotels. There'll be some bed and breakfasts in there, and no timeshare, no vacation travel, no vacation ownership, there'll be some hostels in there in parts of the world. Generally in the U.S. there will not be hostels, but in other parts of the world there will be. So, and we can help you with specific questions like that. Remember, we can ultimately send you a participation list and you can see what's in there and what's not. So, a couple more questions. Jim?
Can I ask how can you guarantee that this data is reliable?
Yeah.
100%?
Most of the data we receive directly from the corporate headquarters. So we get less than 10% of our data from individual hotels where, mom and pop are entering it on into the website. Now we do get some of it that way. If they're an independent hotel, they may enter it that way. Most of it will come from the corporate headquarters. So we get a feed from Bethesda for every Marriott hotel in the world. We get a feed from Alexandria, Fairfax for every Hilton hotel in the world, and so on. So it's coming straight out of their systems. No human ever gets involved. It goes from the Hilton PMS to the Hilton corporate and straight to us. So that doesn't mean that they couldn't have screwed up at the Hilton PMS. They then have to correct that, and we get a correction. Because we get refreshes of data on a regular basis. Make sense? So, pretty reliable. Yeah, it's I tend to say it's 99-point-something% accurate there. There's always, there's always a little bit of inaccuracy in it, but you keep in mind, all these companies are using this data to bonus their GMs. So, they're relying upon it heavily too. Make sense? And one more?
It's not really related to market study, but just wanted to know, are you planning on integrating with Airbnb and getting that to your?
We're tracking it real carefully, and we're real strategic when it comes to stuff like that. So I can't say much more than that. But so we always are interested, and they're they have been very it's been a hard sell for them to be more transparent with their data, but I think they're beginning to see the value of that internally themselves, and more will hopefully more will come out in the future.
Thank you.
So good, but this data, there's 12-month data. Of course, that's valuable because 12-month data does what? Removes the seasonality. So that's typically what we do when we graph. We graph the 12-month data. Perfect. Monthly data is in there as well, and daily data is in there for the impact analyses. Okay, so you can get umpteen years of daily data. If you want to track that event back for the last couple years, you can do that. All kinds of cool stuff. Even the segmentation, group and transient, is in there. If you're more familiar with that, that's cool stuff to work with as well. Good. That's the most popular type of data. Everybody feel comfortable with that? That's called a trend report, or you call it performance data, whatever you want. But that's the kind of things, as you're dreaming up a project, that's what you can ask for, and we'll send you a trend report. So, or multiple trend reports. Not a problem. The next type is that pipeline data that I mentioned to you about, pipeline and supply data. Now, you can get that for any area of the world, and typically for that you don't specify a small group of hotels, you just specify a geographic area, because we'll tell you everything that's going on in that geographic area. Very valuable. That's the kind of thing that gets used for feasibility studies and market analyses. And I won't go into a whole lot of detail. Now, Renita does spend a fair amount of time looking at this, but there are this is the first page. There are 6 pages of this. The first page is the summary page. It has 2 sections, a historic supply section. This is going to show you what went on in your geographic area for the last 5 years. And you're going to see that by hotels and by number of rooms, okay? Luxury hotels, nothing went on. There was one 5 years ago, there's one right now. Upper up went from 14 to 15. Upscale went from 23 to 33. 10 new upscale hotels within the last 5 years. This is just a summary. The next page will show you the brand, and another page will show you the property detailed to that, but this is the summary. Yeah, question?
How do we know the classification of your,
What's a what? What's a luxury? Yeah, that's all in the reference section, and you can even download that from our website that shows, here are the luxury chains, here are the upper upscale chains, and so forth. And the CHIA training will tell you how we do that. But basically, we do it ADR based. So not by the number of amenities, not by your reviews, no relation to star rating, because that's not consistent. It's purely ADR as consistent as we can make it. Yeah. This shows you what's going to happen in the next 5 years, because this shows you how many hotels are under construction. Final planning means it's about a year away from construction. And then planning, about 2 years away. And then the last one is unconfirmed. It's a rumor, but we don't know for sure. And all of this raw data will actually have the expected open date in it. So you can actually map out what, take a city like New York. I mean, New York explodes when it comes to supply, okay? And you could analyze, hey, what's New York going to look like in terms of number of rooms and types of hotels 5 years from now? And you could take this data and actually show that, and maybe scare people that you ought to stop building hotels in New York, because nobody seems to convince them that there are not enough hotels in New York City. So maybe they're right. I don't know. Here's brand level detail when it comes to pipeline. We even have conversion activity in there as well. There's property data, although I didn't show you a sample of that. But that's, I'll sort of feel what I, get a feel for what I mean for pipeline data. We can provide raw data That's like what I was saying with the group of students that tried to look at hot markets in an area for the last 5 years and how that's going to change in the next 5 years. That was really cool for China. You saw, markets like Tianjin, that were really popular. Now, markets like Wuhan are becoming popular, and how's that change in brand level? In China, what kind of brands were predominantly developed in the last 5 years? Can you guess? Luxury upper up type brands. What's happening in the next 5 years? You see a much larger percentage of upscale and upper mid-scale. Exactly. Why? Because people realize, hey, you just have too many luxury hotels here and pricing's just going down. I can build a courtyard in China for a fraction of the price that I can build a luxury hotel and make, I can build 5 of them and make a whole lot more money off those courtyards. So Marriott right now is opening 60 courtyards this year in China. So, so you can track that kind of thing over time. Cool stuff. PLL data. Now, this is annual data, not monthly or daily. We can't get, the data providers won't send it to us more often than annually, unfortunately, although we beg for it. They only send it to us annually. But it's lots of revenue accounts, not just room revenue, but F&B and other breakdowns of revenue, plus the expense, plus the profitability. Data goes back until the 90s, and this is another situation where you can select a group of 4 or more hotels. So I can send you a participation report that shows you how many hotels participate, similar to the ones you like. You can then pick 4 and study the average of their accounting P&L data over time and make cool decisions about that, provided in Excel. Let's look at a sample here. So this is a report. We can give you raw data as well, but this is a report. For 2 years, you're looking at not just room revenue, but food, beverage. Other F&B is defined in the Uniform System of Accounting for the lodging industry as non-edible food and beverage. So, you can eat food, you can drink beverage, but other F&B is, non-edible. So if you get a room service and, the tip goes in the other F&B because you couldn't eat that. And other things go in in there. It'll define what's non-edible, what are examples of that. And other, like spa, and that would be in other, and then rentals and things like that. So that's P&L data. You're looking at expenses, at profitability. On the next page, you're looking at undistributed operating expenses like marketing and energy, and then you come to a GOP and franchise fees and fixed charges. There is one more page that shows you all the different payroll breakdowns and all the F&B detail. What Dr. Tracy and I were talking about was, wouldn't it be cool to track think of different groups of hotels and then track payroll over time for these different categories. Payroll is broken down by room payroll, F&B payroll. I think it's management payroll, and then a couple other breakdowns. And so we could, wouldn't be interesting to track payroll costs over time. I was talking to a student before that wanted to go in and detail F&B, revenue and expenses over time as well. All kinds of different things that you could do. Now, one report will show you 2 years, but you can get multiple reports to go back in time. So right now, if you requested one of these, you'd get 2014 compared to 13. But you could get a 12 and 11, and you could get a 10 and a 9 for a group of hotels, and then track something like that over time. I just did this. I'll get your question in a minute. I did this for a group of luxury hotels, and you see, I went back a long time. Now, in this kind of a study, you have to be real interested in consistent sample. What do I mean by consistent sample?
Same number of hotels.
Yeah, you want a group of hotels that report every year for the entire time frame, so it's not distorted by people going in and out of your sample. So 60 hotels reported consistently for this time period, and look what I did. I tracked their room revenue and compared it to the total of their non-room revenue. In 2007, during the peak of the right before the downturn during the peak of the prior economic cycle, look how room revenue peaked, and what happened? What do you notice about non-room revenue? It just flattened out, didn't it? Which made me wonder with this group of hotels, all the energy that they exerted managing room revenue and maximizing room revenue, what happened? Didn't spend the same time doing that with the non-room revenue. Think of it, luxury hotels, you guys could graduate and go become a revenue manager in a luxury hotel, couldn't you? Could that luxury hotel afford a non-room revenue manager? What would they do? They'd maximize all the non-room revenue. Hey, that hamburger, that parking expense, that health club, that spa. Let's add 50 cents, maximize it. And if they did, think of it. These 60. If that graph looked like this for those 60 hotels, that would have been millions of dollars to their, and millions of dollars. Because think of that. That would have been pure profit, wouldn't it? That would have been a major. Advanced.
Yeah, this is a little bit related to my question that I had. It's about ADR and chain scale, but I was wondering, since some hotels, they might throw in, amenities into their room rate, say you can buy at this rate, but breakfast is included or free dinner or whatnot. But say there's another hotel, the room rate, what you're getting on the room is, so they don't include the amenities, but the rate is lower.
Mm-hmm.
But so what the hotel is getting is actually around the same.
Yeah.
Would that be taken into account?
Uniform System of Accounts has real detailed definitions in terms of what the hotel is supposed to do in those types of situations.
Okay.
And we spend a lot of time with the major companies in ensuring that they're following the rules. Okay. And they have to go back to their IT department, get documentation from their IT department that here's what we're doing, and all these rooms are being followed.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that there aren't things in there to possibly explore. We identify all-inclusive hotels. Be interesting. Something I'm just shooting from the hip. But how do all-inclusive hotels do during economic cycles compared to similar hotels nearby? You could pick all-inclusive hotels and compare them to a similar group in the same market of hotels that don't have that, and see, hey, during a downturn, how are they similarly affected as the hotels that aren't all inclusive? Cool possibilities. There are just so many untapped possibilities and so many questions that people don't take the time to answer in the data. So that's why this kind of thing is really cool. And it could set you up for really interesting possibilities as far as the future. Let me get you in the back first.
Thanks. Yeah, I know you said you have more participants in the hosteling space in Europe than in the U.S. How about in Canada and other spots in North America? Do you still?
Hostels, I'm not sure. Now, obviously you see a lot of brands coming out there. What are some of the new hostel brands that are being launched? Yotel's not really a hostel. Generator and Freehand.
Freehand,
yeah. So that kind of stuff would be really cool. And I honestly don't know if we're tracking that if we have that stuff in the database immediately. But there's I would say that would be a really cool thing to begin to look at. And I can check to see if we have that kind of stuff. I'm not positive, so it's hard. Now I know in Latin America, we track a lot of them there, but I'd have to, I'm not sure how they get categorized. I'd be glad to check on it. Remind me, and I'll be glad to check on it. So, but those are cool kind of things to analyze. Branding right now. One of the things I do is I have a branding gone wild presentation talking about all the wacko kind of things that are going on in branding now. I was showing some pictures to the group before, and collaboration in the industry. What publishing company is launching a group of hotels now? Who would have thought that this organization would ever be in the hotel business? National Geographic launching a group of 24 hotels around the world for adventure travel. You look at fashion company in the hotel industry right now. They have a couple of hotels opened in Italy, Milan. Anybody know? Bulgaria, yeah. They're one of them's right across the street from our office in Italy. Airline company, couple hotels. Virgin, yeah, the most recent one announced for Nashville on Music Row. I had a picture of it in my presentation. And Margaritaville, who else is getting into it? Gap is collaborating with, I forget who. Not as a hotel, but to buy product. You check into the hotel, you can buy Gap and have your Gap purchase delivered by the end of the day. Meridian is partnering with Lego. So to do a family-friendly thing, you check into the Meridian, what kind of Legos would your kids like? And they get Legos at check-in. Everybody's thinking about it. I've heard rumors about Nike and all kinds of weird and wonderful things. Why? Because the industry is in such a positive situation. Everybody wants to partner with the hotel industry and get a piece of the pie, and that's the cool environment we're in right now.
What type of data are you using to do that?
For the branding data, we get, I can give you data. I can give you counts, like on Bulgaria. I can give you how many Bulgarians there are, and how many hotels, and how many rooms there are. In terms of new ones, that's where we're looking at the pipeline data, because a lot of those things, like the Virgin in Nashville, is unconfirmed. I was teaching a group before. They said, "You mean there's an unconfirmed Virgin in Nashville?" I was like, they got a big kick out of that. But that's pipeline data, and and then some is just media, and Hotel News Now. I track that, real carefully and just see any kind of an announcement out there, and that's in that future trends presentation. So it's funny because I did that last year, and I haven't been able to let it rest. I keep updating it on a weekly basis, and I'm behind a little bit, but with news and what's going on recently. So anyway, P&L data, good questions. One more. Yeah.
So as far as accessing data for student projects, how do we go about doing that? Is it through CHR? Is it through STAR? How often can we get data from?
Check with Mike. Email Dr. Sturman and let him know what you need. Try to boil it down, try to compartmentalize it. Like, I'd like to study 50 different markets, and pick 5, and start with 5, and try to narrow it down just a little bit. So I'd like data on every hotel in the world. No, that's a little bit.
And typically you have to be working with a professor. The professor doesn't have to make the request, but like as an independent study is supervised by a faculty member, they like to see there's at least a faculty member CC'd on all this because of the nature of the data.
That help? Yes.
Are there plans in the future to start tracking non-branded properties, independent hotels?
We do that now. Yeah, we track it. Now, unfortunately, the participation is not as good. But, we're going to have, major independent hotels in the U.S., we'll have them all. The Greenbriers and those types of hotels around the world. Why? Because, their staff has come from branded hotels where they were tracking star reports. So the first thing they ask if, where's the star report? So those types are going to get it. Now, why we have offices all over the world is to build that same kind of participation in every area of the world. A lot of times we'll work with the tourism organization. If there's a local hotel association or a convention and visitor bureau, we'll team together with them and say, look, hey, you guys don't want to track this data. We do it. That's what we do. So let's work together. You encourage your members to participate. We'll give you the data so you can see, you can have your finger on the pulse of the hotel industry when the media comes to ask you how are they doing last month because of the papal visit. And then we offer a free program to hotels to send us data, and we give them a general report. They don't get a star report, but we'll give them a general report just to submit their data. Now if they want a comp set, that's when they pay a little bit. But an independent hotel to get a monthly report with comparing them to the comp set costs $600 a year. So we used to joke about the fact when people got newspapers that it was cheaper than the newspaper. Now nobody is a newspaper, so it wasn't that way as well. Papal visit in the Philippines guess what the effect? Occupancy, of course, went off the roof. What did ADRs do in the Philippines because of the papal visit? ADRs were flat. Now, why were ADRs flat? Didn't anticipate?
The Pope's visit?
They did. No, no. I mean, no. It's good. Another reason.
Hey, they're Muslim there.
A lot of complimentary rooms.
No. They booked so far ahead. They knew it was going to be busy. They booked so far ahead. The ADRs were rising, so but they booked a year ahead. They knew they had to book in order to get in early, and so they booked. It was a little bit of a premium, but by the time it actually got there, the ADRs had increased so much that in some cases they were paying less during the Pope's visit than what I was paying when I just showed up and not wanting to see the Pope at all, but just having to attend a conference. So crazy stuff like that. That's a great example of impact analysis.
So what if we don't want to do a research, but we'd like to have access to data? Do you guys have a student membership or any type of way we can access it?
Not really. Most of it is really, project based. Yeah, most of it's really project based. So, but if you have a question or something you're thinking about and you want something, you can explain that as well. So most of it is project related though.
I just did an internship in Las Vegas over this summer, and it was interesting to see that Las Vegas doesn't participate in the STAR report, like all the gaming resorts, I guess.
Right.
But I heard that they might be joining you guys too.
With our new Casino Star program, which we had all the major players sitting around a table like this, designing that program. Now, of course, what's important for them? Comp rooms. Okay, we've got to break out comp rooms because they don't want that to affect occupancy and ADR. So that's got to be in a separate column, and we have lots of other kind of special needs for the casino industry. Now they all have to. So everybody agreed on it. We have a Casino Star, report that I can't show you yet, but everybody's agreed. Everybody's, but now we have to wait for the data. One thing I've learned about IT departments in the hotel industry is they're a little slow, and generating data for things like this, come real low on the priority list because there's no money to immediately be made until somebody puts on the pressure. The daily data was a perfect example of that because we launched daily data at the end of the 90s. And there were a couple big companies that weren't participating. Guess what forced them to participate? Submit daily data. They had it on the list. Our IT departments are working on it. Then 9/11 happened. Okay. Then all of a sudden, Mr. Marriott wanted to see, hey, how are we sucking as bad as everybody else? Back to the suck less principle. Oh, well, we don't contribute daily data, so I can't tell you. And all of a sudden, weeks later, we had daily data from all the holdouts. And I was just joking about Marriott, but you get the idea. A lot of times, things like that force companies to get serious, and so we're still waiting for Casino Star data. And good question. Everybody doing okay? Good. So P&L data, cool things you can do with it. If you have ideas, don't hesitate to throw them out or talk to a professor about your ideas. Census data. This is the attribute information we have on hotels. We have this for 160,000 hotels all over the world. If you look at some of it, we have historic information, we have amenity type information. I'm looking, we have a bunch of types in there, although I do not see hostel in there. It should be. We have meeting space data. Oh, we have latitude, longitude. Anybody play with GIS at all? That would be a cool thing to do if you have somebody with GIS, that would like to even get into graphical information systems. A student did a really cool project on a hurricane that came to Houston, and she graphed the performance, like occupancy and ADR data on a like a heat chart type thing, red, green, as the hotel came in on a daily basis. So cool kind of stuff that you can do with the latitudes and longitudes for these hotels. All kinds of different things. Not very sexy, it's just, raw hotel data. And then property and room counts, we make those available. You're doing a market study on a geographic area. This is a sample of Tennessee, okay? It just happens to be where I live. STR is based in Nashville. This gives you a breakdown. You can get Nashville by market and track. You can get Nashville by scale, by class and brand. Understanding what? What's that helping you do? Understand the size and structure of a geographic area. What are the top brands in the Philippines compared to the top brands in Dubai, or UAE? All kinds of cool things that you can do with property and room counts. At pure markets, market study 101, whenever I have to do a presentation somewhere, first thing I do is I run a whole bunch of property and room counts to try to understand, hey, what's the industry like in upstate New York? What are the top brands in upstate New York? I have no clue, but that's the kind of stuff this does. And company information, forecast data is available as well. I don't have samples of those. And the reference information, your professors can get access to that, and probably wouldn't hurt to actually have some of that stuff on file. We ought to talk about doing something like we're doing for somebody else to make some of this stuff available, like chains and scales. Somebody was asking, that's valuable reference information. Or parent companies and brands, what are the Accor brands? There are 20 of them, and which one, what goes with what, and how they change, We haven't had any big changes. What was the last change? Kimpton moved where? IG. So, things like that we track on a regular basis, so you can come back to here and find that. So, student requests, as we're talking about, get together with your professor on that, and then together you can email sharecenter@str.com. The rules now, in terms of the data that you receive, you're not allowed to share any data you receive to anyone outside your university. So if you're interning in Las Vegas, you can't take that data and show them to the company you're interning with. Why? Because they're a customer, and they buy data from us. And in this program, we provide data to schools for next to nothing, but as long as our customers keep buying them from them. So the Las Vegas CVB, we want them to buy data, so don't share anything with anybody you're interning with. And then no direct or indirect profit, so you can't take the data and say, hey, how about free dinner tonight if you show it to a hotel in Ithaca. So that makes sense? Everybody clear on the rules?
What do you mean consulting opportunities?
Typically, if you have a consulting opportunity, then we're glad to provide the data to you, but that's not for free, because if you're doing consulting for a customer, they're paying. You let us know what you need, you let us know it's a consulting situation, and then we'll give you a price on something like that if you're working with a company. Or if you're in an internship situation where they need some data and say, hey, I know where to get this, just let us know, but specify that it is for profit.
If we're doing an independent study of the professor and we're working on paper, we publish the paper, can we use data in that sense?
Yeah, publishing in an academic journal is not a problem at all. Yeah, publishing in an academic. And then sourcing and stuff like, we'll give you sourcing information about how to do that. Yeah.
What if it's a case and you win and you decide to go forward with it, like a business project or something?
Yeah, just give us specifics on the situation. That shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, shouldn't be a problem. All right. Any other questions? You guys asked great questions during the time. I'll stick around a little bit more if you have any, if you want to ask them one-on-one. But any group questions? Awesome. Hey, well, thanks for sticking around till 5:30 at night on a Thursday night. Hardcore. So enjoyed it, guys. Keep in touch.
I think just one other point to keep in mind, you don't need to know exactly what data you want. It's okay if you'd like, I think I want something like this, or it sounded like, because there was a lot of information presented today. So don't feel like you have to exactly know what fields or whatever it is you want to ask for, that they will work with you, we'll work with you to help figure out what to get. And it can be an iterative process, so don't feel too overwhelmed by how overwhelming it is.
Yeah, generally your professor is going to have a pretty good understanding of this. Now, if they're not exactly sure, then talk talk to Dr. Sturman or shoot us an email and we'll help you with that. But generally, your professor will have a pretty good understanding of what, what you're thinking about and what, whether we have it or not and those types of questions. So, great.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.